Good morning, this is Matt Sherwood with the Tech and Stuff YouTube channel. I'm a technology teacher of middle school students, but this video would fall in the stuff category because I'm going to show you how to make a Pinewood Derby Angry Bird car. I made one of these for my kids and I designed it right here in SketchUp. So let me start with the block of wood like you have when you're doing Pinewood Derby. And you could get this sized out exactly right when you're in SketchUp. All you have to do is start with the actual dimensions of the Pinewood Derby car. Honestly, this block you see on the screen is sized right, so you need to measure your wood to make sure that you're right. You simply make your rectangle in the right size, and then you're going to take the push-pull tool and bring it up to the right height. Now let me measure the block for you just so we can get it right. So this block is 7 inches long, it's 1 3/4 inches wide, and it is 1.5 inches tall. So I believe that is regulation Pinewood Derby block, and I'm just going to erase this other one because it was not regulation. So that's what you start with the block of wood. And so my idea was, okay, how can I make this into a Pinewood Derby car? So I decided to shave off some of the front there and then shave off all the way to the back here. And so you're wondering, okay, you drew some lines and I used the pencil tool for that. Then I'm going to switch tools to this push-pull tool and click on the tip of the arrow with my left mouse button and start pushing it across until it kind of turns glassy looking, and then notice it disappears. Do it again. Click, push all the way across, and let go. Okay, so that's my first step. You could easily do that with a saw, and that's kind of my idea in thinking about how to do this. Now, when I made this Angry Bird here, I had to come up with some other blocks of wood to use. So as long as your competition allows you to add this much wood to your Pinewood Derby car, you're okay. With ours, there was a height requirement and a weight requirement, but we could add on other things, other wood, other items as much as we wanted. And so that's exactly what I did. So let's look. Now, before I proceed any farther, I might want to add that it's a good idea to check your toolbars, and you want the Getting Started toolbar and definitely the Standard toolbar because that has a handy undo button on it. So let me bring that out. Now I'm going to switch to the pencil tool here and draw a vertical line. And I know it's vertical because it's blue. And then bring it down. I need to follow this line, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to point to that line and kind of trace it. I'm not clicking on anything, I'm just kind of hovering on it, and now it realizes what line I want to mimic. So I'm looking for the purple line. There we go, purple. Now I want that purple line to stop at this edge here, so I'm going to hover on it for a second, and it's called an inference. Get my purple line back. Okay, so now I have my second block of wood that I put on. I'm going to take this tool, which is the push-pull tool, click with the tip of the arrow, and pull it to the edge. Now, when I get to the edge, I kind of drag it down to this shape, or I point to that edge because it allows me to line it up perfectly. And then if we look back at our Angry Bird for reference, looks like I had another block on top of that, and so I'm going to again follow this up, say hover on this line until I get that inference there. There we go. Bring this across. Alright, so what I did is I basically took 3 blocks of wood, glued them together with a clamp, and it allowed me to get this height I needed to get that Angry Bird bulge. Now I kind of need to see exactly how I did this. I did it a while ago. So it looks like I'm going to start my curve on the top of the first block, curve over the top, and then end about where I curved up from the bottom of the bottom block. That's going to be the beak. So let's look at this. So I'm going to take this tool called the arc tool, click on that edge, and then it's going to end. Where is it going to end? It's going to end about actually here, because I'm imagining the beak is going to come up from here. So that's about where the arc is going to end there. Then I'm going to hover that up. Let's hope that this is all cooperating. Right to the top, and you can see that bulge there. Now I'm going to take the pencil tool, click on the edge of this line, end of that line actually, and go to this end point right there. Okay, now I can start doing something really cool. It's called carving. I'm going to click on the push-pull tool, push that across, let go, push that across, let go, push that across, let go, and you can see the shape is coming together here. Now, as far as actually working this out in the wood shop, you're definitely going to need a jigsaw or a scroll saw. Scroll saw being one of the larger machines that runs the blade in a circle. That will definitely work a lot better for making this curve. If you have a jigsaw or a reciprocating saw, it'll work, but a lot of times the blade will bend out a little bit towards the bottom and it won't be quite even, so you would need to do a bit of sanding to level it out. It could work though. So we have the basic shape here. Let's look at our inspiration and see how we're going. Alright, so now I also took and I cut in along the beak there, and I didn't necessarily do it the same on the top and bottom. I did have to take into account the axles, where they go. So I'm going to switch over to that. Alright, so let's look at that beak now. I'm going to erase that line and draw a pencil line from where I want that beak to go. Notice it's blue. That means it's going to the midpoint of that line. Alright. And let's see what happens here if I erase this line. Nope, that didn't work well. Sometimes you have to do a little bit of trial and error. Now I can't exactly push this away because it's not parallel on both sides. So that's going to be, we're going to have to work with that a little bit to make it work out, probably by erasing individual lines. So let me look at my inspiration here. So notice I have a separate triangle right here that I was working with. So to bridge this shape from the top of the beak down to the corner of the mouth, I did that. In fact, I'm going to do a split screen here so I can a little more easily see my inspiration. Okay, so I'm going to take the pencil and draw a line down to there, and then I'm going to connect it to the future of the bottom of the beak there. Now I can erase this line in the middle. So basically you're going to want to design where those lines have been, where they're going to be. Now there is actually a line that goes through the inside of that. What I can do is I can start erasing this. I think we'll be alright. So there's that top beak there. So the pencil, it has this rule, maybe you're noticing, that it automatically fills in shapes when you have all the sides connected. So this, I'm going to go to, I guess I'm going to go to that corner there. So you see the kind of the angry bird mouth here, filling in there. This one, same as on the other side. Now you may be wondering how I'm moving it around so easy. I should have mentioned this. Is these three tools on the top are used for movement. Pan tool moves it back and forth. and the zoom tool rolls it in. Now these tools are also built into your mouse. If you have a scrolled wheeled mouse like you see in Microsoft, then you can roll the mouse wheel to zoom in, and you can hold the mouse wheel down like a button, and it'll kind of rotate the whole screen here. I'm kind of concentrating on getting this figured out, how I did it. I know. Let's look at this beak here. So we have a little bit of I think this was purely decorative, but it's probably about time to erase this part, and we could erase this and this. Now we're just connecting all those back together. So what it's going to do is, as we make this, it's going to automatically fill in those missing pieces as long as it makes a shape. So there we have that. We're going to draw the inside of the mouth here. This was all something I just painted on when I did it. And let's take the beak here. Lines up on the other side. Bring it down to that corner. Okay, so we pretty well have the beak worked out there. Okay, and as far as making the tail feathers on the back of the angry bird, I'm just going to kind of zoom in, and I'm going to make them separate. So I have two little feathers, and I just made two simple rectangles. Now I'm going to make them 3D with this push-pull tool. Click in the middle with the tip of the arrow, bring it up, and you're thinking, that doesn't look like a feather. Well, just be patient. I'm going to take the arc tool now, and in a couple steps I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to curve the feather up there, and then I'm going to click again, this time down there, and make the arc. Now that arc actually came a little too far. I think it'll be alright. Now, as the technique I did earlier, we're going to use the push-pull tool. Push that across, and with this one I can actually fill in that empty spot there. Same idea with this other one, except I'm going to make it just a bit more sticking up. I'm obviously on break at school. I'll have students in a second. Alright, so I'm going to finish this one, make it kind of stop at the top. Closer you zoom in, technically the more accurate you can be. And so with this last one, I'm going to follow the shape of the feather. And I'm not thrilled with the curve of that, but that's alright, it's a feather. Again, take the push-pull tool, push it across, make it disappear. And that is how that is how you make the shape of the feathers. Okay, so the next step in this project is creating those tail feathers you see on the back, and it's basically 3 separate triangles, and I just used them on the back. Now, to make them in SketchUp and to model them, simply need to make some rectangles here, real thin ones, about the width. The reason I might draw them like this instead of sideways is because it kind of, the ground, as you would call it, sort of acts as a backstop. Instead of, if I draw them sideways like this, they might end up 10 miles away and hard to, not exactly close to the project. So for this, I'm going to raise this up, each of them one at a time. Raise it up, raise it up. And now I'm going to use that carving technique. I'm going to make this full screen so we can see it. With the pencil, if I take each of these, and I think I'm going to make these a little smaller on the ends, and then I'm going to carve them. So speaking of carving, when I made these, I used that scroll saw, or you can make these squares and sand them down. Either one will work if you have a good sander. If you have a sort of a mounted sander, like a rotary sander, that'll work pretty well. And I actually shaped them pretty close to this when I was making out of wood. That way I could glue the ends on with the high quality wood glue. And for this one, this is the biggest feather here. So when you're making them out of wood, make sure that you leave enough space to glue them on, or else they'll keep breaking off. Now, there's one step we're going to do on all 5 of these feathers, and it's going to be the same for each of them. So what I'm going to do is click on the arrow tool and click 3 times on each of those feathers. It's going to select everything, and what I'm going to do is sort of freeze them as they are so that it's easy to work with them. I'm going to right-click and choose this thing called, either I can make them a component or make them a group. I'm going to choose to make it a component and just name them feather 1 all the way through feather 5. So I'm going to do this 5 more times, or 4 more times, and continue in just a second. Okay, I'm back. I've made each of these tail feathers a component, and basically the reason for that is that they don't stretch in weird ways, and it's easy to move them around. Now, to move them around and place them, I'm going to use this tool called the Move tool. And it's real easy. Just, oops, select the feather you want to move and put it into position. Now for these ones, I'm going to put an angle on them. So with the Move tool, look for these little plus signs. That allows you to give them a rotation. It's another reason to make them a component. You can't do that if they're not components. Take this second one, move it into position, and notice I can just kind of push it right into the surface. Be nice if it were like that on the wood, but it's close. Alright, I have to switch components before I can move it. So I'm going to put an angle on this one, and notice when I want to move it, I actually click in the middle of a surface, and look at it from the top, get an idea, maybe put a little rotation in that. That's not quite at the right height. Just look at it from different angles, you'll get a feel for it. And that works. Now with these feathers, I don't know what to call them, head feathers or something, click in the middle of a surface, and notice I adjust the angle I'm working at, because if you want to lift something vertically, you want to be at a sort of the right angle to do it. About where I want that. Okay, switch components here, grab it in the middle, and I kind of just slide it right into the top there. Now I actually want that other feather to be sticking up higher. The Angry Bird in the games kind of has a cowlick of sorts with that feather. And slide it down. Okay. Go back to this component and let's raise this up a bit. There we go. Voila. Feathers. Now the last step is coloring it. I could, of course, do the eyes and everything. I'll do that just to show you. And the last step is to decorate it. So I'm basically going to put the eyes on here to get my inspiration back from my other one. There we go. Angry Bird eyes. I just found a picture on the internet of what the eyes looked like, and probably want to use the pencil here. Of course, this isn't essential for your design necessarily. When I made it with wood, I actually made some small pieces of wood for the eyebrows, kind of accentuated it a bit. I didn't design them out of, relief here, but you notice if you are are using SketchUp, you can. So when I did it out of wood, it basically looked like that on the eyebrows. The arc tool is probably the tool you want to use for the bottom of the eyes, because they do kind of curve like this. And then outside curve there. And the arc tool, I don't think I've explained that very well yet. You just click on the beginning point, click on the end point, and then you bend it the direction you want it to go. It's actually pretty straightforward and simple. Which way do I want to bend those eyes? I don't know. I think I made a mistake there. That's why I like that undo button handy. I didn't have it handy, so I pressed Control Z. Okay, not the best eyes I've ever seen. If I want this to be a little thicker, just put another line up here. Remember, when you zoom in closer, you can always work in greater detail. The farther away you are, the less detail it'll allow you to work with. And something isn't snapping quite into position here. I don't like that. Control Z will undo that quickly. Trying to figure out why it's not cooperating with me. Why it's not snapping into a similar arc. There we go, that's acceptable. And let's see, certainly some eyeballs are necessary, and for my other Angry Bird I just did circles kind of in the middle there. Glaring eyes, if you will. Notice the dotted line, that tells me that they're lined up. If I want it to be exactly the same size, I can also point to the bottom of the other eye to line it up. Okay, and last, but the most fun, is decorating it with the paint can. So I'm going to choose the paint bucket on the top. I'm just going to use standard colors, so find the colors selection in the menu. And this is where you just go to town and select everything you want to do. Now when it's a component, you'll notice that it colors it all at once. If you want to see what it would look like without the lines, then you just erase the ones you don't need. Oops, that didn't work so well. Keep coloring this. Let's see, red, 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 red. And there was sort of a orangey skin tone I used on the beak. You of course could do it whatever colors you want. And then the white. And there's a few spots where the black is used. That didn't work so well. I don't know why that's giving me grief there. That's that arc I told you about. Okay, find that arc again. Doesn't want to bend correctly. I think that one will work. And then we needed some paint on the tail feathers. I gotta color the butt red, and we are set. Now I'm not going to bother with the wheels. Those are kind of preset in defined positions. And that is how you can make an Angry Bird Pinewood Derby car. Probably won't be the fastest car, but you might win the prettiest car competition. Thank you, and have fun with that.